welcome to the second day of the Severn Sailing Association ILCA Frostbite series for 2021-2022. This is the ILCA 7 fleet lining up for the start. Probably about 10 or 15 seconds to go now. Most of the boats choosing to line up closest to the boat end of the line. We see Gavin O'Hare lining up closest to the boat in sail number 92. Leo Boucher just beneath him in 086. On the far end of the line, we have Ted Morgan in a colourful sail. Big gap down to the pin. Just behind him, Natalie Burles in 6135, also setting up closer to the pin. Boat starting to accelerate now. Starting to pull in. And they're off. Looks like a clean start so far. No one going back. Rob Emmett up close to the boat end of the line. James Jacob tacking onto port. Not a great start, so he's electing to clear his air. And we have one boat going back. Must have been over early. And another, Gavin O'Hare, 92, also going back. Also over early. Couple of boats now tacking onto port, electing to clear their air. That's Luke Shingledecker, also on port, ducking a few sterns. On the far left-hand side of the course, Ted Morgan in the colourful sail, just going behind the stern of a Harbour 20. You can see in the background a lot of the big boats in the AYC Frostbite series also setting up for their race around the Chesapeake Bay. Ted Morgan and Natalie Burles heading out to the left-hand side of the course. Brian Fishback with the green hull tacking onto port, taking a few sterns, and a boat tacks directly in front of him. He won't be happy with that. Really trapped in that position now. See a few other boats also tacking onto port now, electing to go to the right-hand side of the course. Leo Bichet still on starboard, electing to go left. Excellent conditions today, 55 degrees, sunny, perfect conditions for frostbite sailing. Probably about 6 or 7 knots of wind from the south. You see in the background the Severn River and a whole lot of boats from the AYC Frostbite series. Hopefully won't be a problem for our races today. A couple of lasers in the background. The ILCA 6 fleet getting ready for their start. Got a couple of boats on starboard here and a whole bunch on port heading out to the right hand side of the course. Luke Shingledecker 8025 in the red, working the boat nicely through the waves. Looks like he has a nice clean lane. One boat in some bad breeze tacking onto starboard. Here we have a couple of boats tacking back onto port here, heading out far on the right. Mike Colbert in 3965 also heading right. And Gavin O'Hare in the background, 92. He was over early at the start, had to go back, and now he's also heading out on the right-hand side, some way behind the leaders. Checking in with the rest of the fleet, you can see Ted Morgan with a colourful sail. He was heading out on the left. Looks like he's tacked back onto port now, coming back down the middle of the course, coming right. Most of the boats that went left are now on port, coming back across, electing to come back to the fleet. We have the port starboard situation here. Port tack boat elects to duck the starboard boat, carry on onto the right-hand side. In the background, we see a support boat following the fleet. The course today, 1 lap race. Upwind to the first mark, downwind past the race committee boat all the way down to the leeward mark, and then back up again upwind to the finish line. Just 1 lap. A couple of boats in the background there getting tangled up. Port tack boat electing to tack onto starboard and lee bar the starboard tack boat. A couple more cruisers coming through the course. Boats on the right hand side now looking like they've all tacked onto starboard. Must be getting close to the ley line on the right hand side. There we have the green channel mark. Windward mark probably just to the right of that. Here we have some boats coming in on port, starboard tackers. Boat on port elects to duck. I think that's Leo Boucher on port, ducking Luke Shingeldecker on starboard. Going out to the right-hand side, probably trying to get onto the starboard ley line. Somewhat behind the rest of the fleet. Boat's going well on starboard here, hiking. Still one more tack to go to get to the starboard ley line. A couple of spectators keeping an eye on the racing. And here we see the leaders. This is James Jacob, who had the somewhat average start, had to tack out, and appears to be leading the race now. A little shy of the starboard ley line, but can probably make it work given that there's no boats around him. Just behind him on his hip, Charles Anderson, also working nicely through the waves there, getting set up for the mark rounding, adjusting his controls. Further back, you see the fleet still working their way upwind. Big gap opening up between the leaders and the rest of the fleet now. James Jacob getting the vang off, getting all the controls set for the downwind. No offset mark in Frostbite racing, so it's just go around the mark and head straight downwind. Nice bear away, kept his speed. Charles Anderson, hot on his tail. Also nice bear away. Not much traffic to deal with, so they head straight downwind. Third place, Rob Emmett. Little gap to the first and second place. And in fourth, Mark Holwiger with the GBR on the sail. Big pack of boats coming in now. Sixth place there, Mike Colbert, electing to stay on starboard when the boat in front of him is jibed onto port. Round goes Leo Boucher. He's in seventh, I believe. He's very quick downwind, so expect him to make up some positions on this run. Boats coming around, jibing onto port straight away to get some nice clear air. Luke Shingeldecker elects to stay on starboard. Around comes Gavin O'Hare. Made up some positions after his having to go back at the start. Ted Morgan with a colourful sail. And Natalie Bills comes around now. Obviously that left-hand side did not pay for them. Bears off, and looks like Jeff Moore in the last place. Rounding the weather mark. We now see a lot of traffic from the AYC Frostbite series coming through the course. The lasers having to weave their way through, try and avoid any big wind shadows. James Jacob still in the lead, Charles Anderson right behind. Cruising boat coming through here. Looks like they'll manage to stay above it, keep the air clear. In the background, we see the ILCA 6s having just started their race, coming upwind. We see Rob Emmett in the blue top, working the boat nicely downwind, down the waves, keeping the flow over the sails. Here we see Charles Anderson getting pretty close to James, maybe just trying to affect his wind a bit. James trying to do the opposite, get some separation, get some clear air, go fast. You can see them both working up and down, sailing a bit by the lee, then heating up a bit, get some speed, all the time trying to point that bow downwind. Wind getting a little light now. You can see the sails just struggling to keep flow, especially when the waves get a bit lumpy. Got a couple of ILCA 6s here coming through the course. Generally they'll manage to keep clear of the ILCA 7s. The fleet spread out quite wide across the run, some electing to go quite far left, some sticking down the middle. You can see James and Charles now getting close to the position of the start line. The start line is not a obstacle going downwind, so they can just go straight through it, no problem, and head straight down to the leeward mark. Yeah, we see Leo Boucher, 086, just looking around, trying to keep fast. A lot of traffic now from the ILCA Frostbite series. Here we see a boat going right over the wind of Rob Emmett. You won't be happy with that. Got to try and keep that wind clear. This is the race committee boat, staffed by volunteers. James Jacob electing to go to the right-hand side. Charles Anderson down the left, getting that separation. 2 volunteers today on the race committee boat. Eric Johnson and Christine Potts. You can see on the right-hand side that blue flag, that'll be the finish line when they come back upwind. Orange flag, that would be the start line. Nice day to do race committee, nice and warm. Can get very cold on that race committee boat. No sign of the leeward mark yet, it's a long leg. A lot of opportunities to make up ground on the rest of the fleet. You can see Charles and James really spread out now. Got Mark Holwiger with the GBR on the sail. He's on port. He'll have to keep clear of that starboard boat next to him. Leo Boucher in the background, 086, still on starboard, going fast. Mike Colbert in the red hat, working up and down those waves, keeping the boat moving, keeping the flow over the sail. Charles Anderson sailing a little hotter angle now, trying to get back up closer to James Jacob. In the far distance, we can see the leeward mark, little red hippity hop. Still some way to go before they get there. See Charles and James getting really close together here. Obviously line jockeying for position for that leeward mark. Getting that inside overlap, so important. Wind just looks like it's dying a little. Kind of struggling to get down the course. Charles doing a couple of turns. Unfortunately, in that case, knocking all the wind out of his sail, losing the flow. James just gets a half a boat length lead there. So important to keep everything smooth when you're doing your turns, not affect the flow of the wind across the sail. Always working that main sheet, turning with the body weight, keeping it smooth, keeping it fast. Ted Morgan, the colourful sail, easy to spot even from a distance, working his way down the right-hand side. Obviously hoping to get some clear air down there, sail fast. But of course, always the danger of ending up on the outside of a pinwheel, given that the mark has to be rounded to port. Mike Colbert doing a couple of turns. Henry Filter just inside the black jacket. Couple of boats on the outside there, looking like they might start affecting Henry's wind. Here we see Ted Morgan, 92, Gavin O'Hare, working hard downwind. He was quite some way behind, so he's done a really good job catching up here. Ted Morgan keeping the boat heeled over nicely to weather, get that sail high in the air. Gavin O'Hare, looks like his boom is somewhat beyond 90 degrees. Normally not recommended, but perhaps the wind is light enough that he needs to keep it that far out. Just let gravity keep it out. Working nicely down those waves, Gavin. Gavin, an excellent light wind sailor. Looks like we're down at the leeward mark now. First 2 boats have already rounded. Charles Anderson in the lead, having overtaken James on that downwind. James Jacob only about 2 or 3 boat lengths behind. Third place, Rob Emmett looks like he's held on to his third position. James Golden riding just behind him. And Leo Boucher up into fifth. Great downwind for him as usual. Mark Holwiger with the GBR in the sail. Nice rounding. And behind them, looks like a real cluster of boats coming in. Duke Shingledecker on port needs to be careful there. Gavin O'Hare manages to round just in front of that pack of boats. Looks like Ted Morgan won't be so lucky, having to round outside. Grant Garcia, boat rounding there on the inside of the pinwheel, very, very slow, holding up the boats around him. Mike Colbert getting stuck on the outside of a pinwheel there. Oh, that's brutal. A couple of boats on the inside there taking advantage. Natalie Boyles goes around. Good downwind for her. Definitely caught up a few places there. A couple of boats already tacking onto onto starboard. Clear the air. The boat's heading upwind now on the way to the finish. This is the last leg of the race. You can see the race committee boat in the distance. They'll be finishing on the right-hand side of that, between a mark and the blue flag. Here we see James Jacob heading out to the right-hand side again. He made that work on the first leg. Trying to make it work again here. Charles Anderson just crossing in front of him on port. Charles Anderson tacking onto starboard there. Probably trying the lee bow maneuver, but just tacking probably 1 or 2 boat lengths too soon. Doesn't look like he's affecting James's wind at that point. James electing to stay on starboard. Obviously feels like he's got a good lane there. Managing to hang in there. Charles desperately trying to get up to James's line, affect his wind, but so far James looks like he's managing to hold the gap. Nice clean lane. Both of them working down towards that left-hand side. Still quite a bit of starboard left in this leg. You can see they've both opened up quite a big gap now to the rest of the fleet. So looking like a 2-horse race at this point. Just saw a glimpse of the race committee boat in the bottom there with the blue flag flying. In the background, looks like majority of the fleet electing to come out on the right-hand side. Certainly the right-hand side was favored on the first leg. Makes sense to try that again. Here we have Charles putting in a short tack on port. Got to give way. Manages to tack in the lee bow position. Perhaps a little too late. Not sure if he'll be able to affect James's wind enough at this point to be able to affect the pass. Really pinching up as high as he can, trying to slow James down there. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to do it. James has got him pinned. He's going to have to wait for James to tack. Oh, he tacks onto port right in front of James and looks like there's a collision. Charles will have to do a penalty for that. James has stopped dead, but he's got all the time in the world now to just put in a tack, get through that finish line. Charles does his penalty. 2 turns inside the zone. He's got plenty of time to do his turns. Big gap back to 3rd place. James takes the win. Charles tried everything he could. Couldn't hold off the old master James Jacob and has to settle for 2nd place. Coming in 3rd here. Well, that was a superb leg by Leo Boucher in 086 there, catching up a bunch of positions, bringing home a third place after he was quite deep in the first leg. Fantastic sailing from Leo. James Golden just having to avoid a couple of ILCA 6s coming downwind. To wither of him, Rob Emmett, 5th place. Behind him, Gavin O'Hare, great comeback from him, having been over early at the start. Brings home a 6th place, just in front of Mark Holwiger. Great sailing.